Greetings, traveler. I am SnapJelly, and today we're gonna talk about butt spikes. Aha, that was a joke. I made it seem like I was gonna talk about something sexual, like a body part, but instead it's something weapon related. Because that's way more interesting. Got him. Alright, so what is a butt spike? A butt spike is a spike on the butt. And butt is something that could refer to your behind, or your bottom, or your ass. All kinds of ways to refer to your ass. But it also refers to the bottom part of a spear or pole, or I believe also a gun, like a musket or a rifle. Could also be called, but it's the down part, the not pointy part. Now, if you have a butt spike, that means that there is a pointy part. It's a spike on the butt of your spear. There are some questions about the usages of a butt spike, and I thought it'd be a fun idea to just go through all of the possibilities that people think the butt spike may have been used for, and tell you why I think they would or would not be good ideas. So let's start. First off is an obvious one, a weapon. Now, people are not sure if the usage of the butt spike was really intended as a weapon or not. Because it's easy to underestimate how sharp spears actually are. You see, the concept is that if you are in a spear formation or whatever the heck, and your spear breaks, that you could turn it around to hold the stick where it broke and then still use the butt spike as a weapon. But butt spikes tend to be fairly thick, robust kind of in a way. Whilst the point of the spear, the actual attacking part, is very thin, very sharp. They're like knives, really, but on a long stick. So that doesn't really compare. This makes people believe that the butt spike was not a weapon. In a way, this makes sense, of course. So what do I think about it? Could the butt spike be a weapon? I think yes. I don't think that would be its primary usage, though, but it may be one of the things that it could be used for. As in, you would have a gap on the back of your spear, might as well make it sharp so that you could stab with that, potentially. I don't think that it would be a good idea to turn your spear around if it breaks, because that, of course, it largely depends on what spear it is, like if it's long, if it's short, those kind of things, like, and where it breaks too. Like if you have a very long spear, like a pike, and it has a butt spike, and it breaks somewhere at the top and you're in a formation, and getting the pike to turn around, yeah, that's not gonna really gonna help you that much. If it breaks close to you, then you might be able to turn it around, but the rest of the pikes are gonna be way longer than yours, so that's not really gonna help you. But I think it could be used, for example, if your enemy's on the ground, and you have a relatively long spear, you could walk up to him and then stabbing him with the tip is actually going to be more uncomfortable than just stabbing like that. So I think a butt spike could be sharp enough to stab somebody with, but it depends on the spike. Some are pointier than others. Also, if you have a relatively short weapon, like a polearm, something like a pole axe, one that's relatively short, then you could use the butt spike way more actively as a weapon because it's way easier to turn it around and use that side. So I think you could use it as a weapon, sure. Another usage of the butt spike would be sticking it in the ground in formation. Now this one makes an awful lot of sense to me, like especially if you have a long pike, right? And you have to get in a pike formation. If you hold it and like a horse or something rams into your pike, he's not just going to drop down. All of that force is going to meet you. So sticking it in the ground and then leaning forward, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world to me. So I think that, if anything, would be the primary usage of said butt spike. That was the primary intent. And that they later, discovered that you could, you could also stab with that. Kind of makes sense, it's pointy, stab with it. So, but that makes an awful lot of sense to me, that they made pikes that pointy at the end so that you could stick them in the ground to get more grip. I believe that. Now, going further on the more grip thing, I never heard anybody said this, but it's just something that makes sense to me. It's because, as a soldier, most of the time you spend as a soldier is not going to be spent fighting. It's going to be spent not fighting. Marching, for example, in ancient times. So if you have a spear with a butt spike, that might seriously help you as a walking aid. Just think about it. If you're walking on fairly loose soil, having a spike at the end of your spear, it could function as a walking stick. It could help with grip. So that might also be a reason to get a butt spike. And if I'm honest, because most of the times you're not going to be fighting, you'd spend an awful lot more time marching than you would spend fighting, I think that's something that I would invest in, even if that has no other purposes, just in helping me walk. I think I would still want to get one if I could afford it. I think it could also help as a walking aid. Then there's also the concept of it simply protecting the wood, which again makes sense to me. Like modern canes have like little metal knobs on the end. The wood might split if it hits the ground if you are using it as a walking aid, so having something metal there prevents the wood from splitting. I could see it work. Makes sense. Now, something that people say that makes less sense to me is it being a counterweight. Yeah, once more, it would really depend on the size of the butt spike, but usually butt spikes are not that big. They are fairly small. Thick compared to the actual point of the spear, but, you know, the spike itself is not that big. Yeah, if it would really be a counterweight, then to me that just seems like a horrible design flaw, in all honesty. Because things get loose on weapons, right? Like sword hilts start rattling, depending on the quality. That might take a long while, but in time things will simply get loose. And on a spear, something metal attached to a wooden shaft, that will start shaking. So if it really needs that counterweight in order to be balanced, then as soon as that butt spike falls off, your entire spear is unbalanced. Or it's not really that much of a counterweight. It might aid a little bit, it might be a little counterweight, but I doubt that was really the thing as to why people had butt spikes. People are very quick to say this, like, ooh, it's a counterweight, but there are plenty of spears that don't have any counterweight. So you don't need a counterweight. There are other ways to balance your weapon. So I don't think a butt spike is a counterweight. It could be, on individual examples, it may function as a counterweight. But if your spear needs that in order to stay balanced, that would be bad. I'd say that's bad. Now, another thing that I want to address is, well, because it really depends on individual weapons, right? Individual weapons have different functions, and the butt spike would also change function depending on what weapon it is on. Now, the Roman pilum is also quite often depicted to have a butt spike. Not always, but often, right? So this makes people wonder. The pilum is a javelin, right? You're supposed to toss it. So why does it have a butt spike? Because it's also balanced in such a way. The pilum is quite an ingenious javelin, honestly, because one of the downsides of having a javelin, in ancient times, javelins were used a lot, right? And if somebody tosses a javelin at you and misses, hits the ground, and what you can do is just grab it and toss it back. And the pilum was quite genius because it was made so that you can't toss it back, right? The point, I believe it's called the shaft of the pilum, it's very long, thin metal. And it is supposed to bend on impact, right? So even if it hits the ground and not your opponent, then still, because of the weight, it would bend a little bit and you wouldn't be able to toss it back. Now people might say, well, if it has a butt spike, you could still toss it back the other way, potentially. Well, no, because the pilum is also balanced in such a way that if you were to toss it back the wrong way, so with the butt spike forward, then it doesn't fly. So it's quite a genius javelin design, but if it's a javelin, why would it have a butt spike? Because of all the examples that I just mentioned, only the walking aid would really make sense in when you're talking about a javelin, does it? Well, I think no. Because you could still use a pilum in melee combat. You see, if you are a Roman legionary or a soldier of any kind, and you have a pilum that you are supposed to bolt at your enemy, but you haven't gotten the chance yet, then what are you going to do? Let's say, you're in battle, you haven't gotten the chance to throw your spear at your enemy yet, and you get flanked. What do? You're going to just drop the spear and draw your sword? No, you would use that. It's longer than your sword, so you could use that. But if you use the point of the pilum, which is fairly weak comparatively, it might bend, like it's supposed to do when you throw it, and then you're not able to throw it anymore. And that's where the butt spike comes in. You see, on the pilum, the butt spike is usually depicted to be fairly thin and fairly long, which in my mind seems like it is supposed to be a weapon. And if you carry a javelin, whilst in battle, you would carry it with the point down. Right, just looking at this, let's say that this is the throwy part of the javelin, right? You would throw it like that. So you would carry it like this, with the throwy part down, so that when you are ready to throw it, you're immediately able to. You don't have to turn it around before you start throwing, you can immediately throw it. So the butt spike's over here, right at your face, right? So if you do get flanked and you're carrying your pilum and you're not able to throw it yet, then you could simply hold it like this and stab people with it. You're immediately ready to stab people with it. And then when the melee ends and the battle is not over yet and you still have to toss your spear away, then all you have to do is do this and you're immediately ready. The point of your pilum would still be fine and you could still toss your spear like you were intended to. But if you use the pointy bit of the pilum right away, it might bend and then you can't use it anymore as a javelin. So I think that on the pilum, if a pilum or pila, that's one pilum, multiple pila. I don't know. If the pilum has a butt spike, to me that would seem like it's a weapon. So that's everything I can think of right now. There might still be different usages of the butt spike. If you can think of any, post in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? Just look at how long this video is. I don't know how long it's gonna be. I haven't edited it yet, but just look at it. You've watched that entire time and you're not subscribed. Why not? Come on, you can subscribe. And thank you for joining my quest, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Bye, guys.